welcome to this Finding and Winning Scholarship presentation. My name is Velma Green, and I'm the chapter president for the Eastern Panhandle Alumnae Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Incorporated. I hope that you find this presentation tonight informative, effective, and helpful. And now, Ms. Yolanda Wright will give a welcome.
Yolanda, you're on mute.
All right, can you hear me now? Okay, good evening, everyone. I just wanted to apologize. My voice is going in and out, but I'm trying to speak as clearly as possible so that you can understand me. I am truly excited about the presentation that will come to you this evening. I am a part of the Berkeley County Schools Diversity Council, and we've partnered with the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Incorporated, the Eastern Panhandle Alumnae Chapter, for several years in presenting this scholarship workshop. And it's been a blessing to me personally. My son and I attended a few years ago, and he is now, it was called Scholarship 101 Workshop. And he's currently attending Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in Troy, New York. He received over $65,000 annually in scholarships and grants. And he's now a senior. He'll be graduating in May with his electrical and computer science engineering degree from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. And my youngest son is a sophomore at a different college. And we use those tools that we received during that workshop to allow him to also get scholarships to benefit him during his education. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get through this, but they've just been a blessing to us. It's a relief to not have to worry about where is the money going to come from. And you know up front how much is being paid for and how to go about getting those grants and scholarships. And I'm grateful to the Deltas and the two women that will be presenting tonight, Ms. Velma and Ms. Carolyn Togans, for their continued efforts to benefit our community. And I'm just very grateful, and I'm proud to be a part of this presentation through this welcome this evening. I hope that you sit back, are very attentive, take notes, grab the information that's being shared, because it will be a blessing to you and your family. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it back over into the hands of Ms. Velma. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Adani Gibbs, and I serve as the Vice President for the Eastern Panhandle Alumnae Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Incorporated. And I have the pleasure of introducing today's presenters, Mrs. C. Carolyn Togans, who is a former educator from Jefferson County, West Virginia, and also Frederick County, Maryland, and also Mrs. Velma Green, who is a former educator of Fairfax County, Virginia, and also the current chapter president for the Eastern Panhandle Alumnae Chapter. We have a couple of housekeeping notes and a couple of friendly reminders. Questions can be posted to the chat, and they will be addressed at the end as time permits. And then also, please keep your devices on mute to not allow for interference of sound between while our speakers are presenting the information that we all definitely want to hear. So in today's presentation, we'll cover what is a scholarship, where to look for scholarships, getting started with the process for applications, the 7 scholarship application components and tips for those, and also finishing up and refining your application before you send it. So before we get started, we're going to get to know you a little bit, and we're going to launch a poll to see where exactly we are in terms of our demographics of seniors, if we're juniors preparing for college, starting to get a leg up on the application process.
Do you want us to, trying to get this camera going. Do you want us to go first? I didn't know if you were announcing who you wanted to speak.
There should be a poll that popped up on Zoom to allow you to show it, and we'll share those demographics about who all is participating in their poll.
We do not see a poll.
It looks like we have 30 of 34 folks that are participating that see the poll. If you don't see the poll and you want to respond in the chat to say whether you're a 12th grader, 9th through the 11th grade, you are a parent or guardian, or you're an educator, you're welcome to put that in the chat. And here are the results.
So it looks like we have an even mix between seniors, students that are in 9th, 10th, and 11th grade, and also parents and guardians. So from here, I'm going to turn it over to our presenters to get started so we can dive into the information.
Thank you, Adani, and thank you, Yolanda, for the welcome, and also Soror Velma Green. So let's just talk about scholarships. What is a scholarship? A scholarship is a type of financial aid that provides partial or full funding to students. What is a financial reward? Unlike loans, scholarship funds are free money. That means you don't have to pay them back over time, enabling you to focus more on your studies. Now, this reward can also range from money that you can use for paying for books, tuition, room and board, and if it's money that's given directly to the student, not to the school, you could buy a computer or computer supplies. What are they based on? There are different types of scholarships, such as academic scholarships, athletic scholarships, and need-based scholarships, and there are just general scholarships. Academic scholarships may be related to career choices, such as if you're going into education, health sciences, medicine, nursing, physical therapy, sociology, psychology, music, criminal justice, business, just to name a few, or generally used for any career choices. Now, your athletic scholarships generally are for those involved in sports such as track, football, basketball, volleyball, swimming, and other sports-related activities. But there are also scholarships out there for those who are cheerleaders. So, or some of those type activities that I call athletic, but don't always fall under that category. Then there are general scholarships offered by local organizations, like the sororities, which we have scholarships that we offer, fraternities, Masonic lodges, churches, banks, school alumni associations, which I also belong to, civic organizations, and places of employment. Next. Where to look? You want to check with your high school counselor for a scholarship booklet, or many times now it's online at the school's website. So you look there for information. I'm not sure when that information is posted, but as a student, you need to look often to see when that information will be posted on your school website. I have listed some research private scholarship sources that you also can look for. Scholarship search by Sally Mae and some of the others. You can research foundation, businesses, charitable organizations, and also parents' companies where your parents may work. One of the ones that I'm very familiar with is the Eastern West Virginia Community Foundation scholarships. And there's a email there that you can use to search for those scholarships. And there's a telephone number that you can also call if you have difficulty. Now, generally this opens up October 1st, but this year they're opening up December 1st because the FAFSA has been changed and doesn't open up to December 1st. But the deadline to apply for these scholarships, and I'm going to talk about those a little bit, is February 28th at midnight. And then I'm also going to talk about the free application for federal school student aid, which is called the FAFSA. And there's a website for that also. That opens December 1st this year. Ordinarily, it opened October. Now, the local Eastern West Virginia Community Foundation scholarships, which we say EWVCF, opens December 1st, as I said. And when you get into that site, you will get into Award Springs Navigation Guide. There, you're going to create a profile and you're going to go through the qualification questions. It's going to drop you into your eligible scholarships. Now, you may qualify for 7 scholarships. You use one application and it will drop you into where you qualify. It could be as many as 7 scholarships at one time. Now, one thing you will need to remember is that's going to require you to have the FAFSA information completed. So don't try to do this December 1st because you need to do your FAFSA first before you can apply for these scholarships. And these scholarships are online. You can go in, you can save it and go back and work on it. There is no essay. They will have you select 10 questions out of maybe a group of 15 or 20. The important thing for you to do is to use those questions to tell your story. So don't put in fluff. Be careful about how you answer the questions and make sure that if it's a 2-part question that you answer both clearly. One caution that I would like to say is when searching for scholarships, don't pay money to get money. If someone or a company is asking for money to help you manage the scholarship search, most likely it's a scam. And remember, your goal is to minimize your debt. So apply early for as many scholarships as possible, particularly those offering a full or partial 4-year scholarship. I'm familiar with 3 scholarships that are in this area, the Tri-County area. One is the McCormick Scholarship, which serves the students of Jefferson County. Those students who are planning to attend a West Virginia school. That's a full scholarship. And the Roy and Gwen Steely Foundation Scholarship serves Berkeley, Jefferson, and Morgan County. That's also a full scholarship that you must use in West Virginia. Now, they are full scholarships, 4-year scholarships, and they're financially need-based. We'll talk about need-based later. They're also done online. And I know the McCormick requires you to have the FAFSA, but I'm not sure about the Roy and Gwen Steely Foundation Scholarship. There's another one also called the Free to Find Scholarship. That's Berkeley County, covers tuition at Shepherd University, and it's offered only to Berkeley County seniors. Now, these scholarships, if you look on the foundation website, or you just look up those names, those scholarships will pop up. The McCormick Scholarship, Jefferson County, the Roy and Gwen Steely Foundation, that's STEELEY Foundation Scholarship, Berkeley, Jefferson, and Morgan County, and the FRIEDA, FRIEDA, FINE, FINE Scholarship, tuition at Shepherd University only. Now, let me talk a little bit about the FAFSA, and that may be brought up again by someone else. The free application for federal student aid, FAFSA, everyone should complete FAFSA, no matter your parents' income, unless your parents are making $350,000 a year and have a net assets of more than $1 million. And if anybody online has that, then you don't need to do the FAFSA. Otherwise, everyone should fill out FAFSA. File your FAFSA online. It opens December 1st. It's important that you do it early because the deadline is June 2024, but a lot of these grants and scholarships and money will be run out by then. And then West Virginia, and I think Ms. Jubb may tell us about that, West Virginia may have a different deadline. And I remember from previously, their deadline was March, not June. But you don't want to wait till the last minute. FAFSA is the gateway to student financial aid. It can determine eligibility for grants such as the Pell Grant, need-based aid, work-study, and low-interest loans, and those loans that you won't have to start paying back until you finish your goals in your career. File early. As I said before, as many grants and loan programs have a limited amount of funding. And when you do file, I'm sure that you have to use the previous year's income tax, so you don't have to wait until you do the income tax for this year. Again, I want you to look at your school's website for your scholarship information. I want you to do your FAFSA, and I want you to stay on target with some of those scholarships, particularly those full scholarships, if you plan on attending a school in West Virginia. Next. Getting started. I always tell students, and I've been working with students for probably more than 20 years to maneuver this process, build a relationship with your school counselor. We know the school counselor has a lot of students, but you need to try to build that relationship so that when you go in and ask for something, that they can get it to you in a reasonable time. One of the things is to read the entire scholarship application and make sure you are eligible. Don't waste time on those scholarships you are not eligible to receive. However, if a scholarship states priority given to, for example, let's say priority given to education majors, and you might want to go ahead and apply for that because you may get selected by process of elimination. We were looking at a group of scholarship applications one year, and it said priority was given to business majors. Well, the only business major that applied had an incomplete application. Something was missing. So then you go to those students who are going into nursing, going into criminal justice, and one of those students got the opportunity to get the scholarship, even though it said priority was given to a business major. So if it says priority given to apply for that scholarship, if the application says don't fold, use a large manila envelope. If it states 500-word essay or less, do so. Judges and evaluators are looking to see if you qualify, if all required documents are included, if your application is presented well, neat, error-free, and if you answered all the questions. So you may want to use a checklist. Make yourself a checklist to see if you were including everything in that application that is needed. Then the other thing is get the packet to your school counselor on time. Counselors are busy. Don't wait till the last minute to get your packet to the counselor and ask your counselor for a letter of recommendation at the last minute. It just may not happen. When mailing your application, mail early. If close to the deadline, have the postmaster date stamp it. If mailing out of state, send certified mail, return receipt, or with delivery confirmation. There's a couple of things I want to mention also, and the reason why I said that, now I'm going to explain that now. Look for the term received by on the application or postmarked by. It may say received by March 1st, or it may say postmarked by March 1st. There's a difference. Received by means it must be in the hands of the provider by the due date given on the application. If you mailed it on the date of the application was due and it gets there 2 days later, then it's late. Postmarked by means the scholarship packet must be date stamped before or on the due date given on the application. If the application is delayed in the mail and it's postmarked correctly, but still arrives late, there's a good possibility your application will still be accepted. We've had applications before where they weren't dated at all. The postmark wasn't postmarked at all. We didn't know when the application was sent, but we know we received the application late. But if it's postmarked, even if it gets there a few days late, it shows that you mailed it on time. So my advice is to go to the post office, ask the postmaster to postmark your application if it has to be mailed. Next. 7 common scholarship application components: information form, essay. I'm going to say with essay also personal statement, essay/personal statement, resume, financial needs statements, transcript, letter of recommendation, and interview. Next. Information form. Some application may ask for an information form, or there may be one included in the application. Many of the schools in their scholarship website will have an information sheet, a blank information sheet available if the scholarship calls for one and you don't, and it's not one with that packet. They may just tell you to use the school's information form. This information form will ask for background information. It will solicit basic personal and academic information, includes current grade point average and post-secondary plans, and may also include questions about your family, extracurricular activities, and accomplishments. One thing we don't want you to do, we don't want you to put your social security number on anything. And also, when you get those letters of acceptance, I tell parents, you're going to make a copy of that letter of acceptance. I tell them to mark out that student ID that is many times put on that acceptance letter. Evaluators don't need to see that. If they do need it, if you receive the scholarship, they'll contact you and get that information from you. Not all application packets, as I said before, have an information form. If the packet requires one, look at your scholarship website, complete and include it in your application if it is required. Next. Information tips. I can't emphasize enough about following directions carefully. Read the entire scholarship application and then read it again. Make sure you're eligible. Many times scholarships are meant for specific populations, such as it could be just for nursing only, or if it could be just for if you're going into criminal justice or psychology. So be careful. If it doesn't say priority given to, then you don't want to apply for that scholarship. Follow directions carefully. Complete the entire form. Don't leave spaces blank. Write not applicable where appropriate. Looks are everything. Always type or use black ink. Sloppy writing and inaccuracies can hurt your chances of receiving a scholarship. Received a package one year, and it was obvious that the student rushed to get the application in, and she used red ink. Not only did she use red ink, she crossed out a couple misspelled words and spelled them correctly beside it. That was sloppy. That was eye-catching. And so even though she had a complete application, when you're trying to weed these applications out, then those are one of the things that you have a tendency to look at, because you feel that this student didn't take time to give herself enough time, adequate time to do it properly. Check for typos and grammatical errors. Ask someone to proofread it. If it includes your GPA, and you want to make sure that GPA matches the GPA on your transcript. We've had kids before that say I have a 3.2 GPA, and come find out you had a 3.2 for that semester. But when we looked at your GPA was like a 2.9 or something like that. So be careful. The GPA means it's a total. It's not just for one semester. Detail your academic achievement when asked. Draw attention to your GPA, honors, and achievements. Keep in mind that most scholarships will require you to submit an acceptance letter with the packet. It's not, we don't care where the acceptance letter is from. Sometimes students will wait and say, I'm not going to apply for that scholarship because I haven't gotten an acceptance letter from my number one choice. It doesn't make any difference. You just need an acceptance letter from somewhere. It may not be your first choice because maybe you haven't heard from your first choice yet. Because it can be from any school of higher learning, even if it's not your first choice. The other thing I'd like to say is, if you get an acceptance letter says, congratulations, we like to congratulate you, and we're going to give you $20,000 to go to school here. Well, when you start looking at that, school might cost $35,000 or $40,000 to attend. So that $20,000 leaves you with another $15,000 or $20,000 that you need to find to attend that school. I would suggest you not put that acceptance letter in that packet. Selection committees and judges and evaluators review many scholarship packets, and they have to find a way to narrow out the selection. Including an acceptance letter stating a large amount of money may give the appearance that your need, if it's a need-based scholarship, is not as great as another applicant. So select a different acceptance letter, even if you don't plan to attend that school. The other thing I like to mention too is, if your grandmother has set up a scholarship fund for you, don't mention that either in your essay. We don't need to know that. Again, that puts you in another situation when it comes to selecting a person for a scholarship. So some of this information, you need to really just keep it to yourself. Otherwise, it could hurt you getting a scholarship. Next. Essay. What makes a good essay? Or personal statement? It's original. It tells your story. It states clearly why you deserve to win the scholarship. It avoids meaningless information. It's inspirational and positive in tone, and it's honest. Your personal essay is critical to winning a scholarship because it lets the selection committee get to know you beyond grades and test scores that are listed with your transcript. Many committees are looking for well-rounded students who can not only show their excellence in academics, but also in athletics, extracurricular activities, and community service. That's what makes you a well-rounded student. Make sure you give yourself plenty of time to write a compelling scholarship essay that conveys your background, your experiences, your ambitions, and your personality. It's your opportunity to make a strong and lasting impression. Just remember that others have an outstanding GPA just like you. So make your essay or personal statement impressive. Make it a wow. So when that person reads your essay or personal statement, they want to go back and read it again and say, wow, that was quite an essay. Follow essay length. Evaluators do not want to read a 3 or 4 page essay with meaningless information, especially when they're reviewing many, many more applications. So try your best to make it into 1 page. Page and a half is okay, but 1 page is so much easier for an evaluator to read than trying to go through 2 or 3 pages. And also when you do your essay, make sure that you put a statement at the end that says, thank you for considering me for this scholarship. So a thank you. Okay. Next. Essay tips. You're going to make an outline to organize your thoughts. You're going to create a strong introduction, supporting arguments, and an appropriate conclusion. Every story. And when I say when you do your essay, your personal statement, you are telling a story. You're telling your story. You're telling your journey. Every story, including yours, should have a beginning, middle, and end. As I said, the end would be to say thank you for considering me for this scholarship. Include your GPA. Make sure it matches your transcript. Ask for feedback, but don't ask someone to write it for you. But you want someone to look at it and proofread it. Wait 24 hours and then look at it again. And then before you include it in your scholarship packet. But you also want to make sure everything is in that packet. Everything that scholarship packet requires. The scholarship essay is your opportunity to show evaluators what sets you apart from other applications. Your responses to essay questions help scholarship providers understand what you're motivated by and where your interest lies. That's why it's important to start writing your essay as early as possible and to take an organized approach to what you want to include. One of the examples, and these are some examples I've seen in some of the essays and personal statements I've read. Person volunteered 100 hours at the VA Medical Center. And because of that experience, the person decided to go into physical therapy. That's something you could add to your essay. That explains why you have that career choice. I had a student whose grandmother had many health issues. And she was taking care of her grandmother in the evening after school, giving her a bath, fixing her meals, and giving her medicine because her mother worked at night and it was a single parent household. So she decided she wanted to be a nurse. You add that. That makes you stand out. Add that to your essay. And another example was just a student who was motivated by a teacher that she had in elementary school. So she wanted to go into education. So those type things you can also add to your essay. Some of the other things I'm thinking about are if it's a need-based scholarship, and a student or parent may think, well, my child won't qualify for this need-based scholarship because both of us together make too much money. Well, you can make a scholarship a need-based if you have some areas that you can add in that essay. For instance, one of the parents was unemployed for several months. you put that in your essay. Or you had to take in a niece or nephew because of some unforeseen situations in another household. That gives another person in your household or persons that you have to provide basic needs for. You have another sibling that's in college, or you have a parent in college, or you're the oldest of 5 siblings. That makes you more of a need-based applicant. So there's some of the things that you may want to make sure that you put in your essay. Just put in your essay saying, I deserve this scholarship because I have a 4.2 grade point average. There are other people who also have a high grade point average. You have to make sure you have a compelling essay that is going to wow the person that is reading it. And if it's need-based, you put in anything that's in your household that's going on that would make that essay need-based. Maybe you had a parent who had an accident and is going through physical therapy. Well, I know that if you're employed and not retired on Social Security and having a secondary insurance like me, you've got to pay a copay. So that makes you more of a need base because you got to put out copay money for a physical therapy, or if you're traveling because you have to go to the specialist out of town, and you have to stay out of town when you go into Morgantown and you have to stay there overnight, all those things. If all that goes in your essay, and that's not fluff and that's not meaningless, that is important, then that can make you more of a need base. We had a student who moved in their elderly parents, her grandparents. That meant they had to meet the needs of the children in the hospital and some elderly parents. All those things can make you more of a need-based student when you apply for a scholarship. Next. Your resume. To get started, you need to list all the activities, achievements, and skills that you have. Use this to fill in the sections of your resume. Ask your parents and peers to help you remember the achievements that could be included on your resume. Your resume should include information that highlights your strengths. Next. Now, when you're doing, this is just one example of a resume, but make sure it includes your name, phone number, and email address at the top of the page. If your email address is offbeat, like the one that's listed there, or cutiepie@gmail.com, or bigdog@comcast.net, consider getting a new professional sounding one that includes your name. Because what happens with evaluators, they look at that and they think, what's this student thinking about with this type of email? And the other thing I'm going to mention, and Ms. Green is going to mention it later on, is review your social media profiles and remove inappropriate and immature materials. There are students who got scholarships and lost them because of something that was on social media. You need to be very careful what you have on social media. Divide your resume into 4 sections with bold headings. And we have here academic experience, extracurricular activities, work experience, and awards and honors. Target your extracurricular activities specifically for your scholarship. For example, the scholarship emphasizes community service. When you list those activities, your extracurricular activities, you want to list your volunteer hours and the dates beside the activity. Use action words to convey your experience. For example, fed the homeless at my church, and say 30 hours because you're doing it on a weekly basis. volunteered at the Shepherdstown Fire Company Apple Butter Festival. The verb was volunteered. So you started with a verb. Let's say 6 hours. Collected, packed food items for the Jefferson County Ministries, 4 hours. Think about what you did and make an action word in front of it. You know, you don't want to just say Shepherdstown Fire Company, Apple Butter Festival. That doesn't tell us what you did there. So you need to use an action word in front of your activity. Work experience. Even if you had a part-time job, only a few months, you should still mention it. Scholarship judges know they don't expect you to work many hours a week because they know that you're in school and you have to balance school, your personal life, and a job. So it's not expected. So, but they do expect you to be productive, to do something other than to study and make good grades. Honors and awards. Now you're going to list those honors and awards. If it was honor society, you know, there's an honor society, there's honor roll, there's athletic awards you can get, leadership roles. Maybe you're an officer of a club. So those things where you would put under your awards and honors. This is just one example of a resume for students, but you can get online and look for other examples that could be even more detailed if you want a more detailed one, but this is just one example. And you want someone to proofread it, let it sit for a couple of days. So you're giving yourself plenty of time to do all this. You're gonna let it sit, and then you're gonna look at it again. Next. Now, the next slides that you're going to see are going to be continued by Velma Green, and she's going to continue to share some pertinent information with you.
Okay, hello again. Financial needs statement. A financial needs statement provides insight into a scholarship applicant's and family need for financial assistance. Some scholarships place significant weight on financial need in selecting recipients. I want to let you know that there are real people that select your scholarships. It's not done random, it's not done by a computer. So real people, we have hearts, we have souls, we have compassion, we have a conscience, and that's what you're tugging on to get the scholarship. Next. Financial needs statement tips. Be sure to include your family size and hardship. Hardships can include health issues, deaths, medical bills, loss of employment, loss of housing, and change in guardianship. I'd like to tell you a story. Excuse me, let's tell you a story about a lady named Chelsea Fierce. We should know right there, she got a name named Fierce, she must, you know, be something else. But she graduated from high school in Georgia, and she was a valedictorian of her class. She was like #1 in the class. So she gave her valedictorian speech at graduation. And she said, I have never been to anybody in this room's house before. And the reason being is that I didn't have a house that you could go to. She says, I have been homeless for over 10 years. My family has been homeless for over 10 years. She had a 4.6 average. Her mother used to be a teacher, but when she was in the 4th grade, her mother developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and she just had lymphoma, and had a slippery slope going down with medical bills, and lost their home and everything, so they became homeless. For 10 years, she lived either in the car, they lived at a hotel, at a shelter. She spent most of her time in the library. Well, there were 4 siblings, and she took college classes while she was in high school. Now, she said the most favorite meal was lunchtime, because she knew it was free and she knew it was coming. She never, at other meals, she never knew she would have a meal. But unfortunately, because she had to go from one school to the college, she missed lunch every day. Well, she got a full scholarship to Spelman University, and she graduated. In a couple of years, she started working at Johns Hopkins in Maryland, in Baltimore. She wanted to be in the medical field. Yale University heard about her story. They offered her a full medical scholarship to get her medical degree to become a doctor. They said that if she can survive high school and maintain a 4.6 average and to be homeless, she must be a good student. She must be a superior stellar student. And they gave her the scholarship. She didn't apply, they found her. Number 2, include information about other siblings or family members that are currently in college. I'd like to tell you about my sister. My sister is currently a judge and her husband's a lawyer. Well, my niece went on to college and said, well, you know, hey, they're making bucks, they can afford it. Well, 2 years later, the twins went to college. I said the twins. So now my sister had 3 kids in 3 different universities living on campus. So you can imagine the need got greater and greater and greater. So sometimes it may start off one way, but it may end another way, especially like you said, you have other siblings, or they have multiple siblings that are in college. Be sure to mention if you live in a single parent household or if you were the first in your family to attend college, and avoid disclosing any financial planning that your family has done. We're going to use the military policy on this. Don't ask, don't tell. So if your parents have been socking away some money, you don't need to tell. If they don't ask, you don't tell. I like to tell you about a young lady by the name of Faith Hemming. She's a special needs adult, and her friend had a baby, and she was so excited about her baby, about this child, because her friend named her the godmother. So she wanted to do something, but she knew her limitations. So she decided to collect pennies. So when the child was born, ever since then, she collected pennies. Every time she saw something, she put her pennies away. When the child became 18 and had graduated from high school, going to college, she was able to give the girl, her goddaughter, 500,000 pennies, which is $5,000. So don't laugh at pennies again. Next. Transcript. Most scholarships require a high school transcript. Some may ask for an official transcript. This means it must be submitted in a school envelope sealed, and some scholarships will ask for discipline and attendance records, which often are included with the transcript. I know I've served on several boards, and y'all are good. You have good grades, you have good recommendation letters, good community service, your ACT and SAT scores are good. So what I do is I try to eliminate, and I know some people do that, eliminate until I can find the best possible candidate. Next. Always make transcript tips. Always make copies of your transcript to avoid having to pay for duplicates. Yes, I know even not only, schools ask for my transcripts. I had jobs and they've asked for my transcripts. Now I've been out of school for many, many years, and I had to go back and go back to the college and ask for my transcripts, and they could barely find them. But I wish I had kept them at that time, kept a copy. Another thing is be aware of what your transcript records include. Some may include discipline and attendance records back to middle school, and some may include standardized test scores. Well, we know in middle school, some of you act kind of middle schoolish, and you've done some things that you're not too proud of now. Maybe you pull out that cell phone one too many times, or you've been to a detention a couple of times. So you make sure when they send your records out to look to see what it is. Now you missed too many days of school. You wouldn't want anybody to see that. And I know one scholarship I on the board for, we don't ask for that, but sometimes it's in their information. Am I gonna look? Yes, I'm gonna look. And most people will look. So make sure if it's something negative, especially if you did it in middle school, you may not want it sent out. Another reason for your transcripts to make copies, because anything could happen. A couple of some years ago, West Virginia had a stoppage And so the schools were not accessible as, kids didn't go to school as normal. So that was a case. You have snow. I remember Snowmageddon. We were out for 2 weeks out of school. And then COVID, that closed us down. So you never know when you may need that scholarship. You can't get to the guidance counselor, you can't get to the school. So please, like you said, hold on to it. And timing might be such that your transcript will only include first semester of senior year, but you must still strive to do well second semester as it impacts your GPA. I would like to tell you, and I'm gonna tell you why. Seniors, you all get this thing called senioritis. Hey, I'm in my school, I got my money, I'm good. But you got to remember that they still send those grades out. They come out maybe in the summertime, June, July, August, but the colleges still get them. So we have a young lady, and she was a admissions counselor at Osceola College in New York City. Her name is Monica Soto Bonetta. And she had a young lady, and the young lady had a grade point average of like an 85 to 95 out of 100. She was taking AP Science, and she was taking AP History. She had a high SAT and high ACT score. So they gave her not only, admission, but they gave her a scholarship. Well, the summer came. Her grades came back in, and her 85 to 90% dropped down to 76%. And she wanted to know what happened. So she called her on the phone. She says, I'm looking at your grades. So, your senior second semester grades. What happened? Thinking maybe something drastic happened. She said, oh, well, I had a job at the mall and I lost my job and I broke up with my boyfriend. So she said, okay. She got off the phone. She went and talked to her colleagues. They said, well, she can't come here. We can't even allow her here. No, you got to take the call her back. So she had to call her back and tell her that we are now rescinding our scholarship for you and also your admission because of this. And she said, okay. About a week later, her father called. And the counselor said, I could hear it in his voice. He was like begging, please, anything we can do. Now, while he was begging on the phone, she also heard the girl in the background yelling, oh, my life is ruined. I'm not going to school. Oh, and then the mother was yelling, I told you so. I told you so. So she said, what you need to do is have her enroll in a community college. Take a full load of high-level classes and good grades, and then after a year, apply again. Well, he said, well, the community college is already finished. They've already, it's closed. It's too late to submit an application. She said, well, find a school near you. So about a year later, the guidance counselor admission counselor received a phone call, and it was from the father. And he said, I'm calling to thank you. We did exactly what you said. We found a school. She took a heavy load. She made great grades, and now she's applied and she's going to school. But more than that, she learned a very valuable lesson, and that was the takeaway. So please, just because you make it first semester, they still get those grades for second semester. Next, a letter of recommendation. Letters of recommendation give insight into your personal, professional, and academic abilities. Letters of recommendation can be from a teacher or a coach, a counselor, community leader, employer, church leader, or other. Next. Now, I'm a retired high school math teacher, so I received quite a few requests for recommendation letters. Now, I only have you for 1 hour, 5 days a week, 5 hours. So I know it's much more than that. So we ask that you provide us a profile sheet. Now, the profile sheet for the person who's writing the letter, and it will be sure to include your school activities, your experiences, your community activities, your college major, your academic goals, your personal qualities, and your GPA. If I receive that, and sure, like other people too, we can write a much better letter and a more insight of you. Do not ask relatives, especially people with your same last name. I had an application and a young lady, she must have asked her boyfriend's mother to do it. And she wrote the letter and the lady said, this is from my son's girlfriend. And she told, so please don't get your family members. You know, auntie's gonna write a good letter for you. Make sure the person likes you. Some people ask me for letters and I'm looking like, I was the best person to write this letter. You couldn't find anybody else. I was your best choice. So do that. Also, give them enough time. I've had people to ask me on Friday for a letter on Monday. Like I don't have a weekend. When you give me enough time, I will write you a nice letter. But if you ask me Friday, you want it Monday, I may say it's a little rush on my last thing I do on Sunday night. I may do. I'm trying to keep it to one page. Nobody wants to read a dissertation, so we don't need all that information, concise, one page. Do not have it written to a specific scholarship. That way it can be used over and over again. So you want to kind of make it generic, but about you, so it's not specific college or either a scholarship. Man, if you are volunteering, let's say for your freshman year, you decide to volunteer at the library and you're reading books and you're shelving books, so other things. At that time, you've done a great job. Get somebody right then to write your letter. Don't come back 3 years later, because 3 years later, that person may not be there. She's going to be like me. I don't remember you. So get the letter then and file it away, because you may need it later on. So especially if you made a very good impact, get the letter then. Okay, next. Interviews can be intimidating. Be careful, but careful preparation can help you break through that nervousness and present yourself calm and with confidence. Next, interview tips. You need to familiarize yourself with the organization given the scholarship thoroughly. You all have computers, you have Google. Google the organization giving you, because you may say something that will impress you. I think Carolyn didn't tell you a story, but I remember she had a scholarship, Martin Luther King Jr., and the person was talk about Martin Luther. And they were looking like, did she know who was giving the scholarship? So please make sure you know exactly who is giving the scholarship. Practice, develop your verbal communication skills, but not only develop your verbal, but your nonverbal. Look at yourself. Are you smiling? Your body language, where are your hands? Develop those too. Look in front of a mirror so you can see what you look like. Pick an appropriate outfit to wear, like you would wear to a job interview. I had a young lady and she had a dress. The dress was kind of tight, a little short, and when she sat down, it went up. And she spent the whole time of the interview trying to pull that dress down. And I know she couldn't concentrate on the questions because she was so worried about the dress. So make sure you sit down in your dress and it fits when you sit down. Be on time. We know in West Virginia, you have the train, you have weather, you have traffic, you have detours, you got a GPS system that will get you lost. So make sure you're on time. They're there waiting. They're there. So if you need to go the night before or before time, do that, so you will not be late. Also, if it's at a building, the building may have 4 different exits or 4 different entrances. You don't know which floor, where to go. So make sure you know specifically where to be before time. That would take the pressure off you too. You won't be so nervous there. So you know how it is when we're running late. Shake hands when you arrive and make good eye contact with everybody there. During the interview, don't rush your answers. Slow it down to the pace that you're comfortable with. Think of your interview as a conversation, not that they're trying to interrogate you. Think about it as that. Think about the question and then answer it. Stop talking when you've made your point. Don't ramble. So you need to be able to read the room. If they are smiling and you're supposed to be stoic, but it's kind of hard sometimes, and you see them smiling, you see their head nodding, you know you're making an impact. You know they like what they hear. But when you get that stone face, like, it's time to go. It's time to stop. Okay, so read the room, and for the people who are interviewing you, honesty is the best policy. Just be you. Now, with that, I want to talk about a young lady named Mackenzie Fierceton. She had graduated from University of Penn. She had a scholarship, and she got her master's degree, and she applied for the Rhodes Scholarship, the Rhodes Trust, from the Rhodes Trust. Now, she got it, received it too. But now she wrote and she talked about in her application for the Rhodes Scholarship and for her application for Penn State, University of Penn, that she was a foster child. And she even put down statistics. Only 2% of foster children get their college degree. Now here she has, she was getting a master's because she was like doing a double program. And she talked about how her mother abused her and how her mother physically abused her and her mother's boyfriend sexually abused her. And she talked about how she had to go in the hospital several times and she had to go live in foster care. Well, she went on and she was, like I said, ready for the in school for the Rhodes Scholar, and somebody, United, I don't know, they sent a text to them and said, she's not saying the truth. They sent pictures of her skydiving, horseback riding, whitewater rafting, and they did some research. They found out her mother was a radiologist. She had gone to a private high school for $30,000 her mother paid for. And so they had a conversation with her. And with her lawyer, she ended up withdrawing her application. And she, instead of, I guess she realized she had kind of fabricated some things. She was not in foster care and that type of thing. So please be honest, because there are people out there that will that know you and know about you. And last but not least, thank your panel for its time when you exit. Thank them for taking the time to listen to you and to have you there. Next, finishing up your application. Make sure your application is clean, neat, and error-free. Okay, you all have these nice computers that count words, as Carolyn talked about earlier. You don't want to go over, because I know one scholarship we looked at that word. If the word count was over, they only got that amount of points. They lost points because of that. Also, even though you have a spell check, you still have to be careful, because we know like the word "to" can be written 3 different ways. So, but it only is appropriate in one of those words. So make sure of that. Make sure your application is completed in its entirety. I sit on one board, and we have people that they will look at the application. So what they do is they go and they look to see if you have everything. If you're missing something, they pull it aside so that we don't waste our time, because you're missing a signature here, because you're missing a recommendation letter. So make sure you have your application in its entirety. Have someone review the application materials, somebody besides you. Let somebody else look at it to see, because sometimes we can't see our own mistakes. We see other people's mistakes better. So please have someone to look at it that you trust, whether it's be a teacher or a counselor or a friend, a trusted friend. Have someone review the application materials. Make a copy just in case things happen. They get lost in the web, great wide web, so please make a copy. Mail the application to the right place with the adequate postage. We know that your application, when you put all the things in it, it's a little heavy. And maybe it was 3 cents. Well, let me tell you, the people who get in the application, they're not gonna pay that 3 cents. They'll send it right on back. So make sure you go in, weigh it, and you have the appropriate postage on it. And make sure it gets to the right place on time. Pay attention to postmark or in-hand requirements. If it has to be a certain date, go in and have them hand stamp it. They will do that, okay? So I would like to talk about social media. Whew. And now I'm going to talk about a case that just recently happened, like last month. It was a young lady, and she lives in Louisiana. Her name is Kaylee Timon. And if I'm saying her name wrong, please forgive me. But she was a senior at Walker High School. So it was homecoming, and they had a party at a private country club, and she went to the party, and she was dancing and she was twerking, and the DJ took video. Now the DJ posted the video, and of course it got back to the officials at her school. Well, when it got back to the officials at her school, her principal saw it. She was at present, she had a great grade point average, 4.2. She was in activities. She was the student government president. He talked to her and he told her what she did was inappropriate. So he took her down and she could not, took her office away of the student government president. And he told her he was taking away any recommendations for scholarship. Well, of course, she was devastated. And she went home and told her mother. Her mother tried to meet up there. So finally, the town got into the middle of it. And when the town got in the middle of this, they sell t-shirts, let her dance, and the whole town and the principal, he took a leave of absence. He eventually apologized, and he just said he would, they would help with the scholarship, but it was too late. The scholarship she wanted, it was already due. That she was supposed to get, the application was already passed, and she could not do anything for that. So she couldn't do anything, and she lost that scholarship. So be careful about this. Now I know in social media, y'all are passionate. You have your convictions, you have your emotions and beliefs and feelings, but sometimes we just need to keep them. We don't need to display them on social media. Another gentleman by the name of Nat Panza. Okay, he's an 18-year-old guy. He was going to Cornell. He had a football scholarship to go to Cornell. Everything was fine. He started he did a Snapchat, made some racial comments. Now he knew it was wrong because when he did, the person who was videotaping him said, oh, wait a minute, we can't put that up. We can't put that up there. But it was too late then, and somebody put it on Twitter. Within 24 hours, Cornell called him and said he will no longer have the athletic scholarship. Well, it didn't stop there. At school, they found out at Cornell, they got an online petition against it. And within 24 hours, 400 people had signed to say that they didn't want him at his school. So not only was he not getting his scholarship, he was not going to Cornell. It didn't stop there. The person who was recording it got in trouble too. He was supposed to go to University of Richmond down the road, and his admittance and scholarship was pulled also. So be careful. That couple of minutes or seconds of fame or social media can cost you. A couple of, and like I said, there are many incidents. I saw so many of them. It was a gentleman named Bronson Harmon who lived in California, and he was at a rally with his father, the Keep Families Together. And they had a video, and they were showing the video of him, and he shouted a gay slur. And when he said that, everybody heard it on TV. It was on TV. So he was in school, but they put him out and got rid of his scholarship. And his father tried to sue and say something about the First Amendment. Let me tell you about that First Amendment. The First Amendment is the right it protects you from the government prosecution for unpopular speech. It does not protect you from losing your scholarship, from losing your job, from losing your admittance to college. So be careful with that. And Marcus Stokes, he's supposed to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country. He went to his dream school. Him and his father, all their life, they've been planning this and putting the steps, and he was going to University of Florida playing. He said he was singing a song, says, welcome back, the N-word, 2 seconds. He made the video for 2 seconds. They found out this 4-star quarterback lost his scholarship, no longer at University of Florida, his dream school. So I just want to tell you, I can have you stories and stories and stories. So please go back and look at your social medias. You know, it could be an old account you forgot. Somebody saw it. Now, most colleges say they don't look for it, but it comes to them. So you remember when you get that scholarship, there's somebody else who wants to be that scholarship too. So they are looking too. And if they see something, they report it. They see something, they say something. So please go back, look for your social media accounts. And if it's questionable, just get rid of it. Get rid of it, because you never know. 2 more. I want to say thank you for your scholarship. Thank people for your scholarship. And some colleges will not give you your money unless you thank them. Like at St. John in New York, you have to thank the scholarship, the people who give you scholarship. You have to thank them, because if you don't, they won't give it to you. So please, because they say that people who have written those letters, they're heartfelt, and sometimes people have already donated money, but when they read the letter, they donate more money. So you're kind of paying it forward. So please make sure to thank whoever gives you your scholarship. Another thing is check into your jobs. I know Carolyn said something about your jobs for your parents, but your jobs, a lot of the Kohl's, Starbucks, McDonald's, they give out scholarships. So your boss may not know, but check and see if you're working a part-time job, because you can work part-time and you can get a full scholarship. They will pay your way. So check into that. And I have 2 short stories, hopefully. I have 2 short stories, hopefully, and that is how I got my scholarships. I'm trying to be very brief with it. So when I went to my undergrad, I was a teacher, and I became a teacher, and I found out I had my student loans paperwork started coming. So I called them and I said, I know there are people who, don't have to pay their loans back. What do they do? And they said, oh, well, you're a teacher, right? If you teach at a low income school, they can deduct some money off. I said, really? I put the phone down, called the school board, said, send me to the poorest school in the town. I need Title I, I need free lunch, I need everything. And I did. And every year the amount I owed went down until it was completely paid off. So they didn't tell me, I asked. So sometimes you have to ask to find out. Another thing, when I got my master's, I went to Old Dominion in Norfolk, Virginia. I called my advisor. I said, I got accepted your college, but I don't have any money. He said, okay, let me ask you something. Are you a minority? I said, yes. He said, well, I tell you what, do you want to take 1 or 2 classes? I said, well, really, I want to take 3. And then before I said, but before I said, but, he said, oh, great. I said, what? He said, well, most teachers want to take 1 or 2 classes. You want to take 3, that's full time. We have a lot of money there. I was able to get my money paid. My tuition paid every year because of that. So sometimes you have to ask, and sometimes you have to ask 1 or 2 times or 3 times. But sometimes it won't come to you. You have to go to it, and that's what happened. Okay, next.
Hello, my name is Carla Hunter, and I am Chair of Program Planning and Development for the Eastern Panhandle Alumnae Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And it is my pleasure to introduce Ms. Carrie Jubb, who is a school counselor at Jefferson High School. I had the privilege of working with Ms. Jubb for 15 years, and I would like to say that she is quite knowledgeable in many areas, including the scholarships in West Virginia, but also advanced placement and curriculum. So please pay attention to what she has to say. If you have questions, just put them in the chat. And now I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Jubb. And I want to thank her in advance because she did this for us last year. And when I sent her a text, she was more than happy to come on again this year. So Ms. Jubb.
Thank you, Ms. Hunter, and thank you, ladies, for inviting me to come back out.
I know that scholarships and planning for, funding for college is very difficult, and trying to think about how you're going to be able to afford things. And there's been a lot of changes over the course of the year. As Ms. Tokens mentioned earlier, the FAFSA was planning to be coming out on December 1st. However, my first bit of bad news is all the latest information we've received so far has it coming out December 31st. So they are still working on some kinks with the new design for the new FAFSA. So if anyone has maybe older siblings for their students that are already in school, there is major changes going on. A lot of the changes is going to be based on terminology for what they're looking for. So they used to have an estimated family contribution, commonly known as the EFC, which is basically looking at what your financial need is going to be. That has now changed over, and they're now calling it a student aid index. So it's going to be a little bit more streamlined for each of your students as you're entering that information. They're also going to be utilizing skip logic with how you answer the questions. So based on the answers that you provide the FAFSA when completing that online, if you answer a certain way, it will skip to certain sections so that you're not filling out kind of redundant information that's not pertinent to you. So the new design is supposed to be a lot more handy. However, it is taking a little while longer for that to be coming out for our students. One of the things that you can do currently, since you don't have access to the FAFSA, is you can go ahead and create your federal student aid ID, and that's going to be used for your electronic signature on the FAFSA. Your student will need to have an FSA ID as well as the parent that is inputting information. This is one of the terminology changes that has also come through with the FAFSA, is that they are no longer going to have a section for the parent. It's now going to be listed as a contributor. And when your student is filling out their FAFSA, they will have to list you as a contributor, and it will send you a separate email to be able to access that portion of the application. So there are a lot of changes coming through with that. It is supposed to be a lot easier, so that's always a positive. You just never quite know. When thinking about scholarships, a lot of times there are linkages with the FAFSA as well. One that I always think about is with the McCormick Scholarship, especially if you're a Jefferson County student. A lot of times it will ask for your financial information, and oftentimes that is included with that EFC, what they were looking for before. So what they are now calling their summary page is now the FAFSA submission summary, and that will be emailed to you once you complete the FAFSA. And when a scholarship is asking for your FAFSA information, you can just include that summary. You don't have to include the 20-some pages that will be printed out. Once you complete that, you're just looking for that summary that's going to have that student aid index that's included. So there are a lot of changes. So again, the one thing that you can do right now is go ahead and get that FSA ID, so federal student aid. So you will want to go to studentaid.gov. That would be the website that's going to line you up with the FAFSA and also getting that FSA ID and getting that started. So again, remember your student's going to need one, and you as the parent or contributor is going to need one as well to be able to officially sign for that. When thinking about state aid in the state of West Virginia, the best website that I can give you is going to be www.collegeforwestvirginia.com, formerly known as CFWV. A lot of the state-run programs are run through this website. It includes Promise as well as all of the other state aid that's provided through there. So those are going to be kind of the highlights. When you go onto the CFWV website and you go into their financial aid and planning section, to start your Promise application, it is going to ask you to create a West Virginia SAM account. That's Student Aid Management. With the creation of this, it allows you to store your information, and it also allows you to input your contact information so that it can send you notices electronically about your award notices. So in the past, the West Virginia SAM account was typically utilized just for the Promise scholarship. This year, they've made some major changes with that, and they've incorporated a lot of the state programming. So when you go in and create your West Virginia SAM account, it's going to give you access to the Promise Scholarship application. It will give you access to the West Virginia Invest grant. It will also give you the HEAPS grant. There's a whole slew of scholarships that are available in different grant programs through the state of West Virginia. So the first initial step is going to be that SAM account. So that, again, is something that you can work on now. So I know we're in this holding pattern for the FAFSA, but there are things that you can do right now. The Promise Scholarship application, for instance, has been available since October 1st. I know the ladies mentioned earlier that there's a FAFSA deadline that's typically in June, and also mentioned that in the state of West Virginia, oftentimes it's earlier, and they were accurate. So usually March is what we would tell our students in the state of West Virginia. And the reason for that is with the Promise Scholarship application, as a certain component of that, you must complete the FAFSA. The deadline for Promise is March 1st. So your FAFSA must be completed by the March 1st deadline as well for you to be eligible for that scholarship. So Promise is going to be based off your GPA. So it looks at your overall GPA as well as your core GPA. So if we pull all your English, history, math, and science, and then we also look at test scores, and then that determines if you're eligible. But if you do not have your FAFSA completed by that March 1st deadline, then you are ineligible for the scholarship. So you want to make sure that you have all those pieces completed. So while we're going ahead and waiting right now for the FAFSA, you can be doing the application and getting kind of ahead of the 8 ball there. So I also mentioned the West Virginia Invest grant. So this is going to be typically for your 2 or 4 year institutions, and it is based off of different major types and the schools that offer them. So it is a little bit more selective in who can get that scholarship, but it's an excellent program that will help with funding. I know for locally, if you're looking at Blue Ridge or anything like that, you want to definitely take advantage of the West Virginia Invest grant. And again, that is through the West Virginia SAM application as well. The deadline for the West Virginia Invest grant is April 15th. So if you're thinking about doing Promise, you know already you need to have that FAFSA completed by March 1st. If Promise is not something that you're thinking about, your next deadline to think about would be April 15th, because that's going to be your deadline for this scholarship. Okay. There are additional programs that just by completing the FAFSA, I know the ladies mentioned earlier about the Pell Grant and things like that. Those are based on you completing your FAFSA. Looking at state funding that comes through, there is the West Virginia Higher Education Grant, and you would only need to complete the FAFSA to be able to be awarded this grant fund. So it is based on need, but you would have to have your FAFSA completed by April 15th as well. So automatically going in there based on the need that's listed out with that student aid index is going to make you eligible for this grant fund. In addition to those types of grants, there's also the HEAPS grant and the HEAPS workforce grant, and then there's also a STEM scholarship. In the past, there was also a TEACH scholarship, which currently the funding looks like it's not going to be pushed through for next year, but students who currently have that will still receive funding. What I would do is recommend for anyone that is thinking about some of the state funding scholarships and grants would be to look at the CFWV website. There's a whole section on financial aid and planning. You can do additional searches for different scholarships that they have housed there, but they do give a full listing for those state funds. And then if you have any questions, just please go see your school counselor.
Thank you, Ms. Jubb. I just wanted to, I took some notes while our presenters were presenting, and I have just a couple things to say. One is about scholarships, and something can be called a scholarship, let's just say an athletic scholarship. In order to get that scholarship, you give something to the university, which is your athletic talent or ability. But there are other scholarships that they call themselves scholarships, but you may be required to give back in return. So for example, maybe you get a nursing scholarship and the state or the hospital or whoever it is says, we will pay for you to go to school, but for every year we pay, you must work for us for 2 or 3 years, whatever it is, 2 years. If at the end you get a job that you say, I'm making more money, I'm not going to fulfill my agreement with this scholarship, it may revert to a loan and you may have to pay that money back. So those are details that you want to look at when you are also receiving some scholarship. Also, you want to make sure that you check with your colleges. It's always important to apply to your college early, multiple colleges. And you want to look and see what their scholarships are. So a lot of, let's just say, in-state WVU, maybe merit-based. So if you get the Promise Scholarship, you know you're automatically going to get another scholarship from West Virginia University. But you don't only want to look at the generic scholarships that a school may have. If you've been accepted into a major, you may want to go to that major, that school that houses that major, to see if they have scholarships for freshmen. And also, once you're in college, continue to look for scholarships because there will be scholarships available to you. They talked about deadlines and paying close attention to deadlines, and they said, please don't add more than the scholarship committee is looking for. I'm just going to say, when I sat on the scholarship committee, I read nothing that was extra. I didn't even look at it because it wasn't fair to those who followed the directions. The flip side of that is, make sure that you are looking at each individual scholarship, because don't send me your discipline and attendance when I didn't ask for it, because now I can't unsee what I saw, even though it wasn't a requirement for me. That may be a way when I'm getting 80 applications for one scholarship and I need to weed it down. I might be able to weed you out because I see your discipline record when I didn't even ask for it. You want to make sure, you talked about submission requirements, very important that you look at those submission requirements. A lot of things are done online now, but some are still pencil paper. You want to make sure, again, they talked about postmark date, due by date, who you turn it into. So sometimes you have scholarships, and this happened when I worked in a high school setting. The scholarship was to be mailed to the organization, but the student dropped it off in the school counseling department. And the day it was due, wasn't our responsibility to turn that in. You're late now. We have to call you back down and say, your scholarship is late. Didn't you read the instructions? It wasn't supposed to be sent to us. Or they mailed it to the organization when it was supposed to go to the school counseling department. So make sure you're really following those directions. You also want to make sure, again, they said apply for everything. So you're looking at those local scholarships, anything that you even think you apply for, you will qualify for. Because these organizations want to give their money away. And just like Ms. Togan said, you may not meet the specific qualifications for everything, but if nobody else applied, you may get that scholarship. And we've seen it before where organizations would call our departments and beg us to ask students to apply for scholarships. Now, I hated to go out and to beg students to apply for money. I really did. But when you have these partner organizations that want to give money out, you're doing it for them. So you would go out and try to find students who would apply for these scholarships. When you're sending something, if you send a priority mail or whatever, unless the scholarship specifically asks for it, do not check signature required. Because if someone's not home to receive it or at the place, then the post office is going to take it back. So unless that scholarship specifically says signature, send signature required, don't do that. Now you might want something where you get receipt, you pay for received receipt, but don't check signature if they're not asking for a signature. If I know there's a lot of you who are planning to apply, and we have people on this call from outside of West Virginia, that you may be applying out of state. So this applies to everybody. So if you are going to apply out of state, make sure you're applying to at least one school in state. At least one school in state. Because you don't want to leave college with more debt than you have income. Okay? So that's one thing. But also, something may happen that you go out of state and you got to come back in. I know that there are some colleges within the state of West Virginia that if you are accepted and you get all these scholarships, then if you say, I want to delay my admissions for a year, you keep those scholarships. But if you don't, you say, I'm not coming there, then when you have to come back home for any reason, the only thing you may be eligible for is a transfer scholarship. So you want to make sure that you're looking at those things too when you're applying to those schools. I always say when you're looking at for scholarships, I used to say start at home, which was said at home means you ask your parents, your grandparents, your aunts and uncles to do the organizations that you belong to give scholarships. All of that. You want to ask that. Then you go out and you look at, okay, the state scholarships and the different companies or the colleges that you're looking at. And then you might want to look at national scholarships. But what people forget to do, they want to get this huge chunk of money someplace that they think is sitting out there, but they forget to look at home and ask those questions about that also. When you're looking at your transcripts, I would say, I think that each semester you should do a transcript audit. You have a right to your transcript, request it, and keep a copy every year. And I say that because you want to check to make sure that what you had on your report card matches the grade, the final grade on the transcript. Because there are mistakes, it's a computer, people in human error happens. And you want to make sure that your grade matches what you believe that you had. I'll give you an example. One time we had a parent come in and their child was off from getting the Promise Scholarship by just a little teeny tiny bit. And the parent said, well, we never thought that the child would be eligible for the Promise. And so when at a freshman, they knew that her grade was incorrect on her transcript, they said it doesn't matter because they never thought she was going to get it. But that grade change was going to make her eligible for Promise. So they had to come in, but remember, it's been 4 years, now we have to go back through boxes to find the grade book from the teacher who no longer worked at the school anymore to find this. And that's when we still had those paper grade books to be able to do that. So make sure if you see a discrepancy on your transcript or your child's transcript, handle it right away, immediately. You also want to be, they already talked about it, colleges will rescind your admissions. And it can also be because you dropped the class. So you may have been, your admission to college is conditional and they can take it back at any time they want to. So let's say you were planning to major in you had a certain major when you applied, and then you decide you're going to drop a class. This happened very early in my career. A student decided that they were going to drop physics and all this stuff second semester because they were accepted to their college. In the end, we have to send a final transcript. And the admissions was like, well, what happened to physics? They dropped it. Well, they can't come here now because we expected them to complete physics before they could come to our school. So it does happen. So you want to make sure that you do that. Also, you want to make sure with these letters of recommendations that you do, it was already said early. I always wanted at least 2 weeks notice. But you want to request early. Now, someone who's a school counselor, that's their job. They have to write you a letter of recommendation. They don't have a choice. But you want to get it in early so it can be the best one that they could give you. Teachers don't have to write you a letter of recommendation. They can say no. Or they may say, I'm going to write 10 letters this year, 5 letters, and after that, I'm not doing anything. They could do that. And it's true. I know we chuckle when we say, make sure the teacher likes you. Now, you might be majoring in engineering and think the calculus teacher is the best one to write your letter. But if every day you walked into that classroom and made that teacher's life crazy and hard to get through that class, that's not the person to write your letter of recommendation. Because people who write, even though they may say, I'll do it, people who read letters of recommendation for a living know when it's something that I'm doing out of obligation or something that I'm doing because I really want to help the student get in. So you want to do that. And also, teachers, counselors, know how to write letters of recommendation. Everybody doesn't know how to write a letter of recommendation. So you want to make sure that you give that individual everything that they need, including I need it typed. You know, if you have letterhead on letterhead. I sat on the National Honor Society. I read a lot of letters of recommendation that said nothing, but this is a good person, nothing, written in pencil, on line paper, you know, and I was like, who is this is what I need. This is what I need it by. Here's my profile, my resume, whatever it is. Give them and ask for a copy. It's okay to ask for a copy of the letter of recommendation so that you can help them. Because maybe you want them to emphasize your community service in that letter. Because your transcript is already going to say tell your academics. So you want to tell them exactly what you need from that letter of recommendation. And I think that is all I have to say right now. So I will turn it back over. I do want to remind you all that there is several documents in the chat for you to download. And there is also an evaluation that we would like for you to complete. But I will turn it back over. Whoever is next.
Hi, this is Tamara. I've posted a QR code for the survey. For your convenience, we did include the survey link in the chat, but you can also scan the QR code with your phone so that you can bring it up on your phone. Filling out the survey really helps us to gauge the success of this event and to plan for improvements in the future. So we really hope that you take the time to fill it out. I think it's only about 4 or 5 questions. As we're taking some questions, I'm going to leave this up here so that you can sign it. But as we are taking some questions and wrapping things up, let's see, I do want to go back through the chat. There were a few questions that came through the chat. There was one question someone asked if the slides would be shown. I mean, if they would be shared. We are not sharing the slides, but we are posting the video on EPAC's website at epac-dst.org. You can see this presentation in its entirety there. It's going to take us a few days to clean it up, but we will post it on our website and you can see the slides in video form. We'll also see if we can post those documents, those 4 documents that we put in the chat as well. There was another question. There was a question that came early on in the presentation when some of the scholarship, the links to scholarship sites were listed. And the question is, do you have to be a certain grade level to apply for these scholarships?
Yes, you have to be a senior. You have to be a senior in high school to apply. And if you're already in college, then these scholarships won't apply.
There have been in the past scholarships that would say for juniors, this one specifically doesn't exist anymore, I don't believe, which was a Discover Scholarship, which was for juniors. But the scholarship will specifically tell you what grade level they're looking for. So, and yes, the majority, I would say 99% will be definitely for seniors. But that's, again, you want to look at the applications and look at the requirements to see. But you could also look at those applications now to start preparing for next year.
Okay, we have another question, and this question came up when Ms. Jubb was presenting, and I believe it was when you were talking about creating accounts. The question is, how early are families able to create these accounts?
So for the accounts that I talked about, the FSA ID, which is that Federal Student Aid ID, you can go ahead and create that now. So that is accessible for you. So remember, the student needs to create one as well as the parent that will be assisting with that so that they can both electronically sign the FAFSA when that becomes available. So the FSA ID you can go ahead and do. On the College for West Virginia website, for the financial aid on there, you can go ahead and create the West Virginia Student aid management account as well that is currently active. And then all of those state-run programs, the applications are all available now. The only part that is going to be incomplete for those applications is going to be the completion of the FAFSA. So once that becomes available at the end of December, then you will be able to go ahead and complete that portion.
Ms. Jubb, could you talk about maybe, what is it? I know that they separated West Virginia, the CFWV. Is that still the website for college planning?
So they do still have a college planning section on there as well through the College for West Virginia. So as you utilize the website, a lot of times it's used more, especially for Jefferson County students in middle school. But there is a lot of really pertinent information through the CFWV website. There is a section on college planning. So if there is something major wise that you're looking for, or maybe a job skill set, you don't know what the major would be, there's a whole search area for that. And it will give you West Virginia schools that have those majors as well. And sometimes if there's a scholarship that's linked with that major, it will even link you up with that as well. So it's really an excellent tool to use. So we always encourage students to go ahead and use that and kind of navigate that website now while we're doing all the planning.
And I believe parents can create accounts also. So you can start as early as middle school, but you just want to make sure that you keep track of your
username,
user ID and password.
Ms. Jubb, there was a follow-up question it was in real time as you were talking. And the follow-up question, and all of these are anonymous, but because I know this person, I'm going to put her on the spot in case she wants to give some additional context. But the follow-up question is, even if they are not a current senior ? And that came from Angela Brown. Angela Brown, do you want to weigh in and give more context on your question?
I believe Carla Hunter answered the question because she said they can apply or create an account as early as middle school. So that did answer it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
We have another question. How long will it take to hear from the scholarship committee if applications have already been made online? We don't even know if there have been any decisions made on the scholarships applied.
So I will say in terms of for Jefferson County, just because of my experience with being here, both high schools, Jefferson and Washington, are currently in the development stages for their directory that will be given out to students. Typically that is given out in December prior to the students going out for winter break. The very first scholarship that is typically due from the directory is going to be in February, so there's still plenty of time for students to review that. It is going to be all geared towards seniors, but as Ms. Hunter said earlier, if you're a junior and you're trying to think about like planning ahead, you can still look at that directory and kind of highlight ones that you're going to be looking for the following year. So with those, I mean, it's going to have everything kind of outlined for you with how that's going to be submitted too. So we'll be going into classrooms whenever the directory is ready at Jefferson, and I know Washington will be doing the same. So students know that it's active.
And then our final question is the Promise Scholarship applicable only to West Virginia colleges?
Yes, it is. Now, one other thing I'm gonna throw in there, just because from my experiences with emails, because I know we were talking about having appropriate emails earlier. One thing I would also recommend is not using your school-based email, because once you graduate from high school, your school-based email will eventually deactivate. So when you're creating like the FSA ID, you're doing your West Virginia SAM account, you want to make sure that you're using a personal email address that is more on the professional standpoint. So you want to make sure it's not linked to that student-based email.
Okay.
You're going to need to access this for a lot longer than you need to be in high school.
That's it for all the questions. I'm going to yield back to our president of our chapter, Velma Green, to give closing remarks.
Okay. Well, I thank you for your time. We're so glad you decided to join us tonight. I hope that we gave you something, a little nugget or something that you will be able to use or share. we hope that this presentation leaves you better prepared in finding funds for your educational goals. It was sponsored by the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Eastern Panhandle Alumnae Chapter, and the Berkeley County Diversity Council. And in conclusion, next. Is it one more slide?
That's it.
Oh, I thought it was another one. I missed. I'm sorry. Okay. So good luck. Okay.
Thank you, everyone, for attending.